Hi again then guys, and so we've got another special projects replica build for you today, and this time, as I sometimes do, it's a slightly simpler replica. Technically it's actually a slower version of the car than the one which we already have featured on the game, and in the case of this replica, it's a replica of the 6th generation Corvette Grand Sport. Now the Grand Sport is less powerful, significantly less powerful than the ZR1 and the Z06, but it's a more motorsport inspired and slightly more track focused version, and you can certainly feel that with the spec of the car. Now visually it's a relatively simple setup to achieve. It is a production model, so you can go for different colours. I've gone for one of the more popular colours for it, which is a blue, and so we'll go over to the visual tuning garage for the relatively simple visual setup, then over to the tuning garage of course for the replica of the tech, and then take it out to a circuit to let it prove itself. Now as far as the visual modifications, you don't actually need to do anything to the body at all, because the Grand Sport does have the kind of similar, not exactly the same, but similar body kit to the Z06. As far as the rims, the actual car has 5-spoke rims, and the rims on the game, these raised GTS rims, are actually not that far off. You have the chrome lip with the slightly different chrome centre, and they do actually look pretty similar. As far as colour, I've left those the colour that you can get from the wheel shop. As far as the colour of the car itself, I've gone for a blue of course, but you can go for other colours as well, and the particular blue that I've gone for, when we scroll down and find it, is called UV blue, and it actually comes from the Mitsubishi Eclipse of the newer shape, the Eclipse GT. And of course, as you can see, we also have red brakes, but that's actually just the stock brake colour. You don't have to select that, which is pretty cool. It goes well with the car, and it certainly goes well with any colour having red brakes anyway. So that's it for the visual look of the car overall. As I said, relatively simple setup to achieve. So now let's go over to the mechanical tuning garage for the more important thing, which is obviously the setup. As far as the mechanical setup, it does round off quite nicely PP wise. It is also a street based tune, so we've gone for sport soft tyres. As far as the brakes, as I just mentioned, I have left them stock because it is, again, more of a production tune. As far as the suspension, we've got the ride height on 120 front and rear. Springs we've rounded up a little bit to 725 and 775, the dampers to 4, anti-roll we've left on 3, neutral camber and toe. We'll come back to the gearbox last as usual. Left the clutch, flywheel and prop shaft stock as usual. For the diff, we've got the initial torque on 10, acceleration on 50, braking on 30. As far as power, this car does not, if I remember correctly, have an oil change, so if you have given it one, you'll need to reduce the power even more of course, and that may mess up your PP, but we've reduced it down to the actual power of the car, which is 430 horsepower, and as far as the weight, you actually need to add weight to this car, 131 kilos, to bring us up to 1542 kilos, which is the actual weight of the rear car, or the real car even. Then we've put the ballast 4% towards the back of the car just to improve the weight distribution a little bit. I've also gone for window weight reduction and added more ballast to make up for that, but you don't have to do that at all. As far as the gearbox finally, we are running the actual ratios of the real Grand Sport, so an auto setting of 286, then for the individual gears 297, 207, 143, 174 and 500, with a final drive of 342. So that's it overall for the mechanical setup. As I said at the outset, a simpler one than usual. So now let's finally take it out to a circuit to see if it feels more of a track biased version of the Corvette. Now, as I mentioned with my relatively also simple replica for the Lancia Delta Evo 2, likewise with this car, this is slightly more a vehicle for enthusiasts of the Corvette. If you're not specifically a fan of the Corvette, especially of course the 6th generation, then you might not particularly care about this car or the differences that it makes. But for fans of the Corvette in general, and especially the C6, it does in effect mean that you can feel what the Grand Sport would be like were it on the game. Plus, the visual look of the car is actually not that far off. It does have some slight visual changes on the actual Grand Sport, such as with the side intakes on the car, but overall it looks very similar on the game, certainly a passable replica. And that's it overall for this particular build. So if you'd like to keep up with other replicas like this, usually more in-depth ones, but other replicas nonetheless, then be sure to hit subscribe down below. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.